Good evening. We'd like to call the meeting to order. It's July 8th, 2021. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chambers, if you could call roll, please.
Ms. Pavlik?
Here.
Mr. Ross?
Here.
Ms. Parkhurst? Here. Mr. Skidmore?
Here.
Thank you.
And under item B1, we have the minutes from the June 28th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 28th meeting.
Thank you, Mrs. Pavlik.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, if you could call roll.
Ms. Pavlik?
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore?
Aye.
Thank you.
And at this time, we have an agenda that's been prepared and is presented before you tonight. And are there any additions, removals, or modifications from the agenda? Okay, hearing none.
The motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. We have a motion to approve. We have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Pavlik. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, if you call roll.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Sable?
And I have three items to share with the board this evening. Some of these are simply updates. I did want to make the board aware that we are required by the state to submit a safe return to school plan for the upcoming school year, as are all school districts across the state of Ohio. We're required to post this up on our website. We have developed a safe return to school plan. As we discussed at our last board meeting, the board sunsets the COVID procedures that were in place. So you'll see things like masks and social distancing aren't a part of this plan. We do, in terms of social distancing, we did put in there 3 feet whenever possible. That likely is only going to be possible in rooms that have the extra space or decreased student enrollment. We will continue to follow mandates and discuss those with the board as they come up, if they come up. But we are trying to take a return to school as normal as possible approach heading into this upcoming school year. As I mentioned last week, I have no doubt that we'll have some things that we keep in place just because it was good practice, such as the hand sanitizing stations and little things like that. But we do not anticipate having the protocols in place from this past school year. The second topic is facilities and redistricting, and I believe I mentioned this last week as well, but I just wanted to inform the board that we did have an initial meeting with our architects to restart the facilities and redistricting discussion. The bulk of that is going to happen next spring. We'll be utilizing the fall to prepare for the spring. We'll be looking at enrollment numbers as well as projections across the community for potential enrollment. We are reaching back out, if the architects haven't already, to see if they're willing to do another study for us, a population study, since the one we have in place is approximately 3 years old now. They do take into consideration the potential of new developments when they put that together, but obviously now we have definite developments that have gone up in the last 3 years. This is going to be a staff community driven project, I anticipate, with discussion groups. This is a big topic in terms of talking about how redistricting potentially could happen, especially with the way it impacts individual students and families. And then, of course, when we're talking about facilities and potential upgrades or replacements, we're talking about a financial piece. And I don't feel comfortable approaching the community for something that they're not going to support. So one of the things we're going to be gauging as we go through this process is not only the need for upgrades in some facilities or potential replacement, but the community support in making that happen as well. So throughout next year, there will be more detailed information shared with the board. And like I said, probably following winter break, we're going to see a really strong push in terms of getting community groups together and things like that. And the last thing I have for this evening is recreation center advertising. And I want to invite Dr. Kwolek up to share with the board as she serves on the rec committee.
Good evening. Mr. Ross and I were at the Rec Advisory Committee meeting today, and I wanted to make sure the board was aware, and if they wanted to have some discussion, Jansen Worley and Christy Motes have asked that we have a discussion and we get the board's permission to remove the word community from some of their advertising so they can advertise more efficiently. So just to give you some background, and thanks to Jim Shields who provided this background, the word community was included in the rec center because the school paid for a portion of the rec center, the city paid for the other portion. So the school district represents Lafayette Township, Medina Township, and Montville Township. So it's not just a city recreation center, it's a community recreation center. So that word community is important to the school district for that aspect. So Jansen and Christie and the rec are not asking to remove the word community permanently or from the name, but simply when they're advertising and looking to create t-shirts or other items that maybe could use some shortened lettering so it doesn't say Medina Community Recreation Center, which is a lot of words, that they be able to use that. I kind of made the analogy of it's like a nickname. And Tina Sable is also on our committee from the library, and she shared that the library did a very similar thing because they had the word community in their name, but for advertising purposes and for brevity purposes, they got rid of the word community as well. So I just wanted to keep the board informed about that. I didn't feel comfortable voting or approving that because it really is a board discussion and a board matter. So Ron, I don't know if you wanted to add anything. We had a short discussion. Rec Advisory felt comfortable, the city and the school members bringing it forward to discuss here, and I know the city will discuss it. So I don't know if you have any questions or any thoughts on that.
No, it's also kind of like Christy mentioned, like a rebranding, taking out the old logo and kind of refreshing the position of the rec center with the fresh start, fresh new look in a sense. And she had some examples, which they looked really good, but I guess we'll present those at our work session.
I just have a question. So sometimes a lot of times I'll see them use the initials MCRC. So will that be continued, or will that just be MRC, or just Medina Rec, or they don't know yet?
It was my understanding that I don't think they're interested in getting rid of MCRC. I think one of the other big things, and I apologize for forgetting to mention this, is there is a Medina Community Center by the fairgrounds, and they get calls, they said, every day confusing them with the Medina Community Center. So hopefully that will help with some of that confusion. But again, as Ron said, we can bring they're looking at logos, some redesign, some freshening up, some painting, some decals on the windows and things like that. And so they wanted to make sure everyone was okay with them, again, for brevity's sake and advertising purposes. I think Jansen shared there's only, with all those words, when they sent them out for different ideas, there's only so many ideas you can do with all those letters, I guess. So if that helps.
It kind of makes sense. Just a quick thought of other rec centers in the area, Strongsville Rec Center, Massillon Jackson Rec Center. It does make sense, so.
And when they asked everyone there, they said, we just call it the rec center. We call it Medina Rec. We don't call it community. I think Tina shared it's kind of implied that you serve the community, but again, we just wanted to make sure that we brought up the history and made sure everyone in the community was aware too that it wasn't a change of the purpose. It was just kind of looking to rebrand and make sure they got some good branding ideas. So
Just a suggestion that they maybe consider registering the trade name for that with the Secretary of State. Because I believe the other name may have been the formal name of our partnership that we had, but that wouldn't be a bad idea to probably have them actually just register that. So the city, I
The
would
city,
assume. So they
okay.
would have it just as an idea.
Yeah, and I told Jansen and Christie I would let them know after this discussion if the board was okay with them moving forward, and I can mention that as well, Rob.
Because I think the JOA would need to be edited for it.
For this, no,
Okay.
they're just looking to make sure no one would be upset if you saw somewhere where the word community wasn't used. So they're not looking to change the name of the rec center or anything major or permanent. Again, it's just being extra cautious, making sure that people know they're not renaming the rec center. They're not doing anything big or permanent. They're just looking to do some rebranding.
The entranceway down there, I think the brick walls, does it reference community on that? Would that be changed? And if it would, where is the cost getting absorbed? Who would be paying for that?
So I don't know the answer to that. I can let the board know if that's an item, but right now, any of this rebranding is my understanding that the rec center is absorbing that cost. The decals, the painting, those types of things. But again, we'll keep the board updated and let you know because Dave would be aware of some of those costs. We're shared facilities committee would also be aware. And I think you sit on facilities committee. So I think at this point it was really, and Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, they talked about painting, picking some new color schemes because most of the walls, as we look around in here too, are tan, some new flooring, some decals again, just, they've done a really nice job kind of rebranding. They've had a lot of events with a lot of people at them where they're really increasing their membership. So it kind of goes along with that as well.
And a lot of your questions are valid. Today was the first day of talking about it. It was introduced to us, so more to come.
Good.
Yeah, it sounds like it's more for, rebranding, marketing, a permanent, like tearing down a stone wall to put a new name in. They would keep that, I imagine, keep that the same because that's pretty expensive. Just more for freshening up a marketing type is what it sounds like.
Good. Thank you.
In my section here, I've submitted temporary appropriations to the board. This is the second set of temporary appropriations that I've submitted. The first set was back in April. At that time, I told you we'd be revising our temporary appropriations all the way until we get to our permanent appropriations in September. If you look at what is submitted, we've revised our general fund appropriations downwards. The only reason it's downwards is because we have at the time in April, we put out guesstimates there for budgets, and now all of the budgets are in from the for the general fund. What is missing here are, we still have estimates for salaries and benefits. We'll go ahead and revise those as we go along. We also have, our sales tax was increased by $800,000. This is, I believe it's for not only to match our facilities needs, but also to match the transfers that we do to our for our bonds that have out of there, our COP bonds. We also increased our student activity and our auxiliary service. The student activity is because we received all the budgets from our schools. Well, we think they're all the budgets from our schools. And then the auxiliary, we're giving them temporary funds so they could start off their school year here. Just like we do, we need to order during the summertime and have things come in, so this allows them to get their orders in before they start the school year. Questions? Ron?
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Oh, Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, just line 25, the ESSER funds. I thought we were getting the ESSER funds for the air conditioning.
Yes, we are getting ESSER funds for the air conditioning. What we haven't done is we haven't closed out the year yet for any of our, we haven't closed out the year for any of our funds. The ESSER funds, the only thing we could do is roll over funds. And at this point, we have no rollovers per se, because we gotta wait till we close everything out, get all the exact monies coming back in. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. And at this time, we have the board communication. if anybody has communication they'd like to, I know we just met last week, so probably, sounds like, Ron, you had a meeting this morning with your committee with the rec center.
Right, Rec Center met this morning. We'll meet next month, second Thursday. Other than what Dr. Qualick reported.
Thank you for attending that. That's an early meeting.
It
So we
is.
appreciate that.
7:30, yeah.
Thank you. Mrs. Pavlik?
I just have update. Facilities Committee met last Thursday, July 1st. There were some additional handicap spaces added in front of the Memorial Stadium. And I'm just touching on some of the bigger things that caught. The Claggett lockers, I thought was really cool. They've been repainted and colors were used because they're used as a safety plan. So if the principal, Mr. Warzencroft, says, go to the yellow hallway, the students know to seek out the hallway that has the yellow locker. So I thought that was a pretty neat concept for that. The fan electrical lines are laid for the air conditioning for the window units that are going to hopefully, and it's looking like the air conditioning will be, it's on schedule to be ready for the start of the school year. And I thought it was also neat that behind the football stadium, between the softball and the baseball fields, they're looking for a flagpole addition because when the national anthem would be played there, nobody knew where to look for the flag other than the people who knew where it was at in the football stadium. So I thought that that was neat. And we had his name, Doug Dukes was there, and he wanted to thank the district for that because, again, it's a very important part of our school athletic program. So, okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Pavlik. And
Mr.
go ahead.
Skidmore, I'm sorry, I did remember one thing. I missed the foundation meeting because they had it the same night as our board meeting last week, but they are planning on having a fall fundraiser this year, bringing that back, and it will be December 3rd at Blue Heron Event Center called the Be Giving Event, and more info will come.
Good, thank you. The applications for board, the district is collecting those for us, and currently, I believe there are 6. Christy Grimes, Andrew West, Aaron Wirtz, I think Mr. Wirtz is here tonight, Aaron Harrison, Ann Manzi, and Gregory Takis, I think. Those are the 6 that I see at this point, unless any others have applied. And we have one more since then? Okay. Do you remember the name? While you're looking up the name, then, the deadline to apply is tomorrow night at 11:59 p.m. So if you apply at 1 a.m., that's too late. It'll be past the cutoff. So, and, you know, to get to that Google Docs application, it's on the school's webpage. If you go to medinabees.org, there's an application to complete there. It's relatively straightforward. And Kelly Meyer is the other one. So we have 7 applicants, it looks like. Kelly Meyer. So that's good. But if anybody out there is considering it, we're letting you know that the deadline is fast approaching for that. So then next week, the board meets at least one night, maybe 2 nights. It depends if we'll need both nights or not. To do those, and those interviews will be scheduled. I'm sure the administration will help us schedule those with the applicants, and I think we intend to do them here. So, so that's what's happening. So unless anybody has anything else, we'll move on to the next item. We have our treasure action item.
Yes, if it pleases the board, it's recommended the Board of Education approve the temporary appropriations for 21-22 school year.
Make a motion to approve the treasurer's action item.
I'll second.
Thank you. You have a first and a second. Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, any questions or comments from the public relating to this action item? Hearing none, if you could call roll, please.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Sable?
Donations, you can see how quickly these come in, considering we just had a board meeting last week, but it is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following donations to the Medina City School District. The first one, and we have benefited from this throughout the spring, but hand sanitizer, sanitizing packets are being donated by Walmart. We've had other businesses throughout the last few months that have had donations as well. Much of that is due to the shortage that there was last fall and then the over-purchasing. So now many companies are donating that to us, which is good because, as I said earlier, those are things that we can continue to use in our buildings. There's also a donation of computers, which are going to be utilized within the technology department. Number 2, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the agreements between the Medina City School District and the Cleveland Clinic for its Medina Life Support Team to provide standby coverage for the 21 home varsity football games and the 21 Medina Cross Country Festival on October 9th, 21. For the varsity football games, there is no charge for the Cleveland Clinic service for that. That is part of an exchange that we do with the Cleveland Clinic that they've actually put in place with most districts in Northeast Ohio that they're associated with. The second, the Cross Country Festival, is cost at about $85 per hour. That cost is not paid for by the district. It's paid for through the funds that are generated from the event. Number 3, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the agreement between the Medina City School District and Renaissance Learning to add the STAR Math subscription for middle school students, grades 6 through 8, for a maximum total amount of approximately $7,400. This is in addition to the existing ELA contract. We use the STAR testing system in order to progress monitor our students. I'm sure you've heard me or heard from our curriculum department that the state assessments really aren't a good way to progress monitor students because we get the results once a year, and oftentimes we get those in the summer when it's too late. So we do use our own testing devices in order to track our students' progress throughout the year. That helps us identify areas of strength as well as areas needing support, not only for students as a whole, but for individual students as well. So it allows us to take a mathematically strategic approach towards education and academics and making sure that our students have what they need. The state of Ohio does require districts to have some sort of assessment in place. I think there's 5 or 6 different assessments that the Ohio Department of Education approved. We have used STAR for quite a while, ever since I've been here. It's required for language arts, and we're expanding it for math. So we want to make sure we are monitoring our students' progress in math and not just language arts. Number 4 is personnel. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following personnel recommendations pending completion of all documentation to our Director of Human Resources. A couple things on here I do want to point out. Mr. Taloni, who has served as Associate Principal at Claggett for the last 5 years, is resigning effective July 31st, and I would like to congratulate him. He has interviewed for and earned a head principal position at Wellington as a middle school principal. He is our second associate principal this summer to earn themselves a head principal position in another district. As it's hard to see people leave us who are doing a nice job, I think it does show the quality of candidates and the quality of people we're hiring in the district, that they are advancing in their careers after their time here at Medina. The second thing is a recommendation for a contract adjustment for our buildings and grounds supervisor. This adjustment was discussed with the board actually last year. It is to align the contract with the duties that are being served, as well as similar positions across the county and Northeast Ohio. The adjustment to the contract was stretched over a 2-year period, so this is the second year of that adjustment. Any questions from the board regarding any of these items?
I'll make a motion to approve these action items.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second on these action items G 1 through 4. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, if you could call roll, please.
Ms. Parkhurst,
Aye.
Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Thank you.
The next item, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following personnel recommendation, and that is Tyler Skidmore for the position of choir director for men's chorus, show choir director, as well as showtime director.
I'll make a motion to approve that action item.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments from the board? I'll be abstaining since it's my nephew. Any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, if you could call roll.
Ms. Parkhurst,
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Abstain.
I meant abstain. Thank you.
And next we have a recommendation for administrative pay raises. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve a pay raise of 2.5% for all administrators, excluding the superintendent, treasurer, and building grounds supervisor for the 2021-2022 school year. The buildings and grounds supervisors included in here because that individual is getting an increase through the contract adjustment. And heading into the next recommendation, which is regarding vacation leave, I just want to extend a thank you to our administrators in the district. We have approximately 45 to 50 administrators that this impacts. Throughout the pandemic, the number of hours that our administrative team has put in order to get students back in our classrooms in a safe environment can't all be counted because it's been so many. It's included individuals working throughout the summer, including July, which they are off a contract during that time and did not receive any supplement payment for working those hours. To spending time making sure that students and families are able to pick up food from the high school, even when school was closed during the pandemic.
I'll make a motion to approve the administrative administrative raise for the 21-22 school year.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Parkhurst and Mr. Ross. So that's action item I-1 for personnel. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Pavlik?
Well, I do have, well, I guess I would like to share, and I'm not sure when I do it, before or after the vote.
I would say go ahead and do it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
How I look at this is, in the way, as far as I look at the approval, it is not a no on the raise, because our administrators do have earned the raise. What it will be is on the percentage, because I do not agree with the percentage. And it's based on the fact that there are other for our administrators, there's other things that are built into their contracts that incur increases. Longevity at the 20-year, 23-year, 25-year, 27-year, and 29th year, where they get increases of 1.5% for longevity. Also, one of the perks that they have, the pickup on the pickup regarding their retirement benefits and how the district pays that portion of it. So I just wanted to clarify that 0.5% that I do not agree with. I look at that compensation as those other benefits and perks that have been in their contract.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ross?
Yeah, I wanted to also comment. I don't disagree with Mrs. Pavlik. In the past, I've always used caution when the superintendent recommends pay raises. And the reason you have reservations is because our job is to make sure we can sustain our budget. That's what we do. And so I've always voted, with my heart, of course, as we all do, but very conservatively. So I don't disagree, Mrs. Pavlik, with what you're stating. But I also want to say that if you look at each action item that the superintendent presents to us on its own merit, without any distractions, and you look at it with all the, just look at it by itself with all the facts. I mean, I really, and also with coming with the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, with this entire school year, I really think the administrators, stepped up to the plate in a huge way. I'm so impressed. The way and we've seen it. I've seen Ryan out there handing computers, and Aaron mentioned the food service, continuing that mission, and just so many other things. And it's just an unusual time. And so by doing that, I know I'm making this more about me, but I just want to support the superintendent this time. I think the administrators really deserve this. I don't have a problem with it. So, but I don't disagree, Mrs. Pavlik, but that's how I'm feeling tonight. So. Okay.
I just wanted to remind the board that we approved a 1.75% increase for the administrators last year. It was not for the entire year. It was only for, I believe, 9 months of the year, when other administrators in our area were getting 2% or greater. And that was after they worked through the month of July, getting our buildings ready to welcome our students back. This year, the 2.5% is still less than the cost of living increase of about 3% in our area. Our administrators do work very, very hard. A lot of things are behind the scenes, and I don't think anyone here is disputing that they don't work hard. But there are a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that people don't always see, and we do really appreciate the work that they did for us all the time, and especially this year, trying to get our buildings ready to welcome back our students. We had our students back earlier than some other districts our size, and I think that says a lot about our administrators in charge. I think it's important to recognize them. We want to have good administrators leading our buildings and at central office, and what Mr. Ross and I have always said, when we make decisions, it comes down to what is best for kids. And I think that we can even use that for this decision. This is best for kids, to keep our good quality staff that we have here. We developed those staff. Mr. Sable mentioned earlier how we have middle school principals that are going on to become principals of their own buildings. So which is fantastic for them. So we do have good staff, and I think it's important to keep them here in our district if we can. So thank you.
Well, yeah, I do. I always make it a point to two things. I vote with my heart and what's good for kids. And yes, I agree. If we have good people, and we take care of them, that's good for kids, because they're going to take care of our kids. Thank you.
I just, one more comment, and again, definitely assistant principals going on, because that is a stepping stone. Any administrator who becomes an assistant principal, they're looking for the long range to become a principal somewhere. And typically in the private sector, oftentimes you do change jobs every 5 years, every 7 years or so. And one of the items that I mentioned before with longevity, that longevity increase, that isn't just if they're in Medina City schools for 20 years. That'd be great, because that means we have an administrator for 20 years. That's cumulative for all the years in education. So an administrator could be 5 years in North Royalton, 7 years in Brunswick, and then they come here after, in their 13th year, they work 7 years, boom. Medina pays their longevity bonus for the rest of their career as long as they're here. So again, these are all of the perks that have been worked into the contract and not approved by us. Okay, these are contracts that have come about over the past 20 years or so. The pickup on the pickup is IRS. I mean, the IRS spells out how it handled. These are decisions that boards prior to us, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, have put in place. And I have said before in conversations with this, ultimately it will become unsustainable at some point, because all of it does go back to the taxpayers. So again, being cautious with the district's money, the way I'm voting is not against the raise itself, it's the percentage. I was looking for the 2% that has been, except for last year, the 2% that has been given in previous years to that.
Thank you, Mrs. Pavlik. I don't really have anything to add based on what you all have said. You've covered everything you all have. So any questions or comments from the public? It's related to this action item, please. Come on up and state your name.
My name is Betsy Jenny, and I wholeheartedly agree with Mrs. Pavlik. You are spending the taxpayers' money, and it should be done responsibly and not so much with the heart, but with your mind and the value. And I think we do have amazing people in our district to work, but we only have so much money to work with. So I agree with you, Valerie. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
If we just have a question about, I think I missed something.
Go ahead.
So you're just trying to get a...
Excuse me,
Oh,
do we need to state
sorry.
name and address before we speak during this
sorry.
part
If you
as
could
well?
state your name, that's fine.
Okay, Nicole Macher.
Okay.
So what's the pay increase that you're trying to get then? If you're saying you're okay with 2%, what's...
It's in our board doc, so it's 2.5% on the base pay for the school year, which starts July 1st. So it's
Okay.
retroactive a couple days, but it's for the next year. So it's a 2.5% pay increase for the administrative team, which would be the principals and some of the other. How many? There's about 25 employees or so
Yeah.
that covers. Okay.
Board office administration, principals, associate principals, directors, director of transportation, food service director,
like everybody.
athletic director.
The only thing that I was thinking about, like when comments were said, was I think you have to take into account too, like if you're going to compare it to other school districts and how much they're doing their pay increases, I think you have to take into account how much Medina City already pays. Do you know what I mean? Compared
Yeah.
to these other districts. And if it's within their means of like our average rate of living in this area.
Yeah,
So
I believe that's been done.
it's just want to make sure you guys are taking
Yes.
that into consideration. So.
Yeah, and I mean, the city recently had 2.5% on one of their groups that was the pay increase. It's pretty consistent with the settlements that we're seeing across the state right now. And they're higher than they were just, say, 3 or 4 years ago. So inflation has started to kick in. We're starting to see a little bit of that. But thank you for your comments. We appreciate it.
Yes, and as I mentioned, the current cost of living increase is 3%, so it's actually less than the cost of living adjustment.
If you call roll, please. Oh, yep.
Aaron Wertz, 3233 Hamlin Road. I want to say again, Valerie, I do think that your perspective is good to bring up. You talked about just a half percentage increase. We say we have average salary in the district for teachers and administrators about $87,000. That's about $4,000 more. Well, let's see, let's just multiply that on each salary. 87,000 times 0.05. It's 5%, or I'm sorry, that's a 5% increase. It's about $435 per administrator a year. So, how many administrators do we have in the district that would be eligible for this increase?
It's approximately 45,
45?
not even.
45 times $435. It's about $20,000. Is that money going to be spent with that $20,000? Where it's going to come from? That's the question I think Valerie's asking. It's $20,000, but now we've just added that to the base pay, and next year it's added to it, so $40,000. And I looked at Mr. Chambers' projections for the 5 years. We see how that is going down. So I do think what Valerie's bringing up, it's not that we don't want to do that for these teachers. We're not saying that their work isn't valued. We're saying that we can't do it right now. We have to look at the long-term plan. We can't just look that we just went through this. I served in the military, and sometimes, guess what? I served a couple of years where I didn't get a pay raise. I was out in combat, and we're not out in combat here. People can go find a job elsewhere. We can find people elsewhere too. So I just say, as the board, look at that long term. It's $40,000 this year, but it adds up and it adds up. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you for your service, too, in the military. We appreciate it. You could call roll, please.
Ms. Parkhurst,
Aye.
Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik,
No.
and Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Thank you.
The next item is administrative vacation leave buyback. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the resolution for a one-time vacation leave buyback for 12-month administrators for the 2020-2021 school year. Administrators may buy back up to 10 unused vacation days after the completed carryover of 5 days to the 21-22 school year. This is an unusual request of the board, and this is directly related to the pandemic. Many of our administrators, as I had mentioned earlier, due to the extra work over the summer, were unable to utilize some of their vacation days. Contract does permit them to carry over 5, and then they lose anything beyond that. In a normal year, people use their vacation days, which I encourage them to, because we all need a break at some time, and this isn't an issue. So it's a unique situation to the school year.
Thank you. I'll make a motion that we accept action item J1.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Pavlik. Any questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Skidmore, I just wanted to make the comment that I definitely support this. Our administrators, again, worked pretty much straight through July. This is time, this is days, pays that they earned. And it is not fair to ask them to lose that. I know in the private sector, many companies have extended this as well due to the unusual circumstances. So definitely support it.
Yeah, and again, I think we all know this is a one-time thing. We're doing it this year. We really want to encourage the vacations to be taken because we feel it's healthy for everybody to get the time away. But again, last year during the pandemic was just hopefully a one-time thing and very unusual. Any other questions or comments from the board?
And again, I just want to reiterate this is money that is due to them. These are days that are due to them. Just want to make sure that's clear.
Questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, if you call roll.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Ms. Parkers.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, and then next we come to the public content portion of the meeting. Community members wishing to address the board have signed up. If you haven't, let me know if you still want to sign up. Attendees shall register their intention at the to participate in the public portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting. After those that have registered have spoken, if time allows, the board president will ask for public participation from other attendees. Please state your name, address, and affiliation. Please keep comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. No participant may speak more than once on a same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. And we have Betsy Jenny as our first speaker tonight. Are you timing? Okay. Welcome.
Thanks. My name is Betsy Jenny. We've lived in Medina for 31 years, and both our children went through our school system. The job of our schools is to educate and teach our children through truth and facts so they can succeed in school and beyond. The job of the parents is to teach our kids morals, character, right from wrong, beliefs, humility, self-control, and to guide our children towards what is best for them. This is not the job of the schools. An example from my own family where the school tried to overstep their boundaries happened when our son was in 5th grade at Heritage Elementary. His teacher called an unexpected conference with us, and also in attendance was the principal and counselor/intervention person. Not quite sure what her exact title was. They all tried to coerce us into putting our 9-year-old son on Ritalin, a controlled substance, because he wasn't doing his homework. Our son, we told them, was never going on any drug because of missing homework assignments. If we had let the school tell us how to raise, discipline, medicate, and label our 9-year-old son, he never would have been able to achieve his later ultimate goal by graduation, which was to be accepted to the United States Air Force Academy and become an Air Force pilot. When he was filling out his application for the Air Force Academy, one of the automatic disqualifying items for acceptance was if you had ever been on Ritalin. He is now a major in the Air Force, a pilot, and has been deployed and fought for our country. He currently teaches Air Force men and women to become Air Force pilots. What we need as parents and a community of taxpayers that fund this school system is to make the decisions about what we want for our children in our schools. To do this, our elected school board needs to refuse all state and federal funds, which I was told by our superintendent is less than 10% of our operating budget. We were also told by our Medina County treasurer that Medina City Schools has a $12 million surplus. By eliminating these government funds, we can keep the government and this board from introducing harmful curriculum and gender policies, as well as illegal medical and health mandates and protocols into our schools and sports. Therefore, it seems like a no-brainer to immediately decline all federal and state funds for our schools. Schools need to stay in their lane and out of our lane as parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, we have Scott Jenny.
Good evening. My name is Scott Jenny. I've lived in Medina for 31 years. I'm here to talk about critical race theory. What is critical race theory? Now known as CRT, it proposes and teaches that the law and legal institutions in the United States are inherently racist and that they function to create and maintain social, economic, and political inequalities between whites and non-whites. At our last meeting, our superintendent stated that CRT was not being taught and there were no plans to do so. He went on to say that he was a proponent of equity. He said that equity equated to social economics, where each student had equal access and equal opportunity no matter where they go to school. Let me read the definition of each. Equality means each individual or group of people is given the same resources or the same opportunities no matter what. Equity recognizes that each person has different circumstances and allocates the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. Our schools have always treated each and every student equally with resources and opportunities, but with equity, some students will get more, some will get less. Equity is not equal. Equity looks for the same outcome for everyone, regardless of effort, performance, and motivation. Equity doesn't provide the same opportunity, the same education, or the same resources to every student, regardless of their race, religion, or circumstance. It makes circumstances an excuse for dependency. It creates an oppressed class and an oppressor class. In short, it causes disharmony and inequality based on preconceived notions, falsehoods, and stereotypes. But equity is now a code word for critical race theory. CRT is creating a race lens through which every aspect of our children's lives are viewed. It's the opposite of what Dr. Martin Luther King preached about and ultimately died for. I'll leave you with some wisdom from our daughter, who is both an educator and a mom. She said, and I quote, "Children are innocent sponges. They will believe what you tell them. They trust what you speak into them. If they are repeatedly told they are smart, they will believe they are smart. The opposite is also true. Every single night for over 3 years, we have told our daughter she is beautiful, she is strong, she is wise, she is good, she is loved. And you know what? She believes it and knows it to be true. She even says it herself now. She declares it. We, all of us, parents, educators, neighbors, family, and friends, are responsible for what our children believe about themselves." End quote. Our children should never be divided by different shades of color. That's why we must never let critical race theory be taught in Medina City schools. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Scott. Mr. Wirtz, Aaron Wirtz.
Hello, I'm Aaron Wirtz, Medina County resident. I'm a former educator, Air Force combat veteran. I served my country faithfully through numerous deployments and have amassed over 2,000 combat flight hours as a KC-135 pilot. I chose to serve because I love my country and my fellow Americans. As an officer in the Air Force, I swear an oath that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I'm here today, again, to support and defend the Constitution, which protects our citizens from our government. Our Constitution was established on the truth that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. According to the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of a religion, prohibiting free exercise thereof, abridging freedom of speech, or the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assembly, and to petition the government for redress of grievances, which I am here today to do. The 14th Amendment states that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to its jurisdictions, citizens of the United States and the state where they reside, no state shall make or enforce any law that shall abridge these privileges or immunities of the citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. I'm here to defend Medina City school children from equity, social emotional learning, sexualized curriculum, socialist propaganda that's in our schools. This rhetoric being dictated by this board, embraced by teachers and administrators, taught to our children in this public school district, all of these divisive policies lead to hate, confusion, self-loathing, and are a direct attack on the liberties enumerated in the Constitution. Don't believe it's happening? My son, a gifted honors world history student, has aspirations of becoming a leader in government. However, his freshman history teacher stated to me that white males are what's wrong with U.S. politics and government. Disgusting. I'm here today to call out the direct assault on the Constitution and the rights of all students within the school district. If you promote and consent these unconstitutional policies, you are either a traitor or a useful idiot. Either way, you're unfit to govern.
Okay. Is there anybody else that didn't sign up to speak that would like to speak? We'll have maybe time for one more. If somebody, I know there was somebody that came in a little late. Did you want to speak? Somebody back there? If not, okay. Then we will move on to executive session. And I make a motion that we move into executive session for the following purpose: to consider the appointment, employment, compensation of a public employee or official.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Please call roll. Oh, and by the way, who's coming in to executive?
Dr. Paul and Mr. Shields.
Thank you. Please.
And no action?
And we do no action afterwards. Please call roll.
Mr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik,
Aye.
and Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.